Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're tackling something that I think a lot of people are curious about.
Yeah.
Markdown developers, like what even are they?
Yeah. It's like a mystery.
Do I need one?
Yeah.
Like, what is this all about?
Right.
But thankfully, we have some great resources from the perfectdeveloper.com folks.
Right.
Who, help us with all of our,
absolute
deep dives when it comes to developers.
Yeah. Anyone listening who's ever tried to hire a developer, you've probably felt the pain of just like, how do you even begin? Where do you even start?
Right.
And they have got you covered.
They really do.
From soup to nuts. So.
And I've heard about this, like 5 key questions thing.
Yes.
And I think that's probably a good place to plug this right now at the top.
Absolutely.
If you're thinking about hiring any developer, go check out theperfectdeveloper.com and answer their 5 key questions.
Yes, it's like a little mini quiz. And it's so insightful. It really helps you kind of hone in on what you actually need in a developer, because you might think, oh, I need a Python developer.
Yeah.
But actually what you need is somebody who's really good at like data visualization, and they also happen to use Python.
Right.
So it helps you kind of refine that search, which is super helpful.
That is really cool.
But yeah, back to Markdown developers.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people think like, oh, they write redems and that's it. But there's so much more that goes into it than you think.
Totally.
So what are they really responsible for, like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
When you hire a Markdown developer, what are you getting?
Yeah, what does that actually look like?
Right. So they're formatting all kinds of documents. They're creating technical materials. So that could be anything from like API documentation to internal wikis to user guides.
Gotcha.
They're making sure that your redems are up to snuff, like you said. And they are really the masters of like consistency and accessibility.
So they're making sure that if I go to a company website and I'm trying to learn more about their API or something, it's not just like a wall of text that makes no sense.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it's like presented in a way that even if you're not a super technical person, you can still understand.
That's awesome.
The basics of what's going on. And that is a skill that is often undervalued in this world where we're just like bombarded with information constantly.
Totally.
Being able to present that clearly is super important.
So I'm like sold already. I need a Markdown developer, but what skills am I looking for?
Okay, so obviously
Markdown,
right? Yeah, gotta have that.
Yeah.
But also they need experience with a lot of the different documentation tools that are out there.
Yeah.
So think about GitHub Jekyll, read the docs. There's a ton of them, and it really depends on like what your specific needs are.
Right. Different projects, different tools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'll also want somebody who's a good technical writer.
Yeah.
Right, because you can know Markdown like the back of your hand.
Totally.
But if you can't write clearly and concisely, it's not going to be very helpful.
Right.
Attention to detail.
Oh my gosh, so important.
Super important, because one little typo can like mess everything up.
It could be the difference between it working and not working.
Yeah, and version control too.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine like a million different versions of the same document floating around?
That's a nightmare.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
So somebody who's good at version control can make your life a lot easier.
Okay, so we know the skills. We know that we need these people.
Right.
Where do I find them?
So theperfectdeveloper.com recommends checking out a few different places.
Okay.
So for freelance talent, you can try Upwork, Fiverr.
Makes sense.
Those are good places to start. If you're looking for somebody maybe for a short-term project.
Yeah.
If you want somebody more established, you might look at GitHub or LinkedIn.
Cool.
You can even browse portfolios on those sites and get a sense of like somebody's style.
Oh, that's smart.
And their experience and that sort of thing.
I think that's the thing I'm always worried about though, right?
Yeah.
It's like you go to these sites
and
it's just like a million profiles and I'm like, oh my God.
So overwhelming.
How do I even pick?
And that's where theperfectdeveloper.com comes in again.
Yeah.
They can help you narrow it down based on your budget, the scope of your project, like how big is it, how long is it going to take, and even the level of experience that you're looking for, because you might not need somebody who's got like 10 years of experience if you're just doing a small little project.
Totally.
And remember those 5 key questions we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
Those can help guide this whole process as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So it all kind of ties together.
I love that.
But now we got to talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Money.
Well,
how much is this going to cost me?
Yeah. What is the salary range looking like for these folks?
Yeah. So it really depends. Like most tech roles, location experience, all that plays a role. But theperfectdeveloper.com says in the U.S., you're probably looking at somewhere between $50,000 and $90,000 a year.
Okay.
For a full-time in-house developer.
Okay, so that gives me like a starting point.
Yeah, a ballpark.
Yeah.
But what about freelance rates?
Yeah, because that's like could be all over the place.
Right, totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
But that's another area where theperfectdeveloper.com can help you out.
Okay, cool.
They can give you like an idea of average hourly rates for freelancers based on their skill set and experience.
Because they're like the ultimate resource for figuring all this out.
Yeah, for budgeting and stuff.
Yeah.
But speaking of options, like, do you even need a full-time in-house developer?
That's a good question.
Like, maybe you just need somebody for a few hours a week.
Right.
Maybe you need to outsource the whole thing.
Yeah.
So theperfectdeveloper.com actually is a really good breakdown of the pros and cons of each approach.
Okay, well, let's talk through some of those.
Yeah.
What are like the advantages of hiring someone in-house?
Okay, so you have ongoing documentation needs.
Okay.
Having somebody who's dedicated solely to that can be a huge asset.
Makes sense.
They're going to be deeply familiar with your brand, your products, your overall style guide.
Right. So they're like, they're really bought in.
Yeah, they're invested. Yeah. Plus, there's just that ease of collaboration and communication.
Oh, for sure.
That comes with having somebody in-house.
Yeah, it's easier to like build that team dynamic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But of course, there are downsides. Right. Hiring a full-time employee comes with a lot of overhead.
Right. You got salary, benefits, equipment.
All that jazz, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about freelancers.
Okay. Yeah, because that was my next question.
What are the pros and cons there?
Yeah.
Okay. So freelancers can be incredibly flexible.
Okay.
You can hire them for specific projects or like a set number of hours per week. They often come with their own tools and equipment.
Oh, that's nice.
Which can save you money.
Yeah.
And because they're constantly working on different projects, they tend to bring a fresh perspective.
I like that, yeah.
And a diverse skill set.
Okay, that's all very appealing.
Right.
But I'm sure there are downsides.
Of course, there are always downsides.
Yeah.
So managing freelancers can require a little more effort.
Okay.
In terms of communication and product management.
Right. You're not like right there next to them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You also need to factor in the time it takes to find the right person.
Yeah.
Negotiate rates, onboard them properly.
That's true.
And there's always a risk that a freelancer might not be available when you need them.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Or that they might not be as invested in your long-term success as an in-house employee would be.
So there are definitely trade-offs.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, what about outsourcing?
Outsourcing.
Yeah. How does that fit into this whole thing? So outsourcing can be a good option if you have a large-scale project.
Okay.
Or very specific needs.
Right.
There are companies out there that specialize in documentation.
Okay.
And they can often handle everything from content creation to formatting to publishing.
So it's like hiring like a whole team of Markdown developers in one go.
Kinda, yeah. You could think of it that way.
Okay.
And the advantage is you don't have to worry about any of the hiring, training, or management headaches.
That does sound pretty tempting.
Right.
Yeah.
But what are the downsides?
Yeah, because there's always downsides.
Well, you might sacrifice some control over the creative process. Yep. And communication can be more challenging when you're working with a team that's geographically dispersed.
Right. And like building that relationship.
Yeah. Building that rapport.
Takes time.
Takes time and effort.
Yeah.
So again, it's a balancing act, weighing those pros and cons.
I feel like we're seeing a theme here.
Yes.
It all depends.
It all depends.
But thankfully, perfectdeveloper.com can help.
Exactly. They're like the fairy godmother of developer hiring.
They're like the Sherpa.
It's the Sherpa, yeah.
Beating us up the mountain.
They can help you analyze your needs, explore your options, and make an informed decision.
Okay, so we figured out which path we want to take. We're going in-house, or freelance, or outsourcing.
Right.
How do I write a job description for a Markdown developer?
Okay, good question.
Like, how do I make it stand out so I get the best people applying?
So you want to be clear and concise.
Okay.
Use bullet points to highlight those key responsibilities and skills, and don't be afraid to get specific.
So instead of saying, like, must have Markdown experience, I should be saying must have experience with these specific tools.
Exactly. Yeah, like name those tools.
Yeah, okay.
You should also mention the types of projects that they'll be working on, what your company culture is, like anything that makes the opportunity like unique and exciting.
So it's like selling the role.
Yes, exactly. You're trying to stand out from that sea of job postings.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's a ton.
Oh, yeah.
And again, theperfectdeveloper.com. can help you with this?
They can help you refine that job description.
Okay.
Make sure it's hitting all the right notes.
That's awesome.
Okay, so your job description is out there. The applications are flooding in.
Okay.
Now comes the fun part, the interview process.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right. So what are some best practices for interviewing Markdown developers specifically?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to assess both hard and soft skills.
Okay.
So yeah, you might have a technical test.
Okay.
You might review some code samples.
Right.
Just to kind of gauge their Markdown proficiency, but don't forget about those behavioral questions.
Right, like how they handle teamwork, problem solving.
Exactly.
Communication.
All those essential skills.
Yeah, all that stuff that makes it actually work.
Right, because you can have somebody who's technically brilliant.
Right.
But if they can't communicate with their team.
Right.
It's not going to work.
It's a nightmare.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
You also want to check references, do background checks.
Always a good idea.
Make sure everything aligns with what they've presented.
Okay, so I found my perfect candidate.
Okay.
They aced the interviews.
They're amazing.
Now we're ready to like talk turkey.
Yeah, the salary negotiation.
Yeah, any advice on how to navigate that? Because it can be awkward.
It can be, yeah.
Especially for me. I don't like doing that.
Yeah, nobody likes it.
What do I do?
Okay, so the key is to be prepared.
Okay.
Research typical salary ranges for Markdown developers in your area.
Okay.
Be transparent with the candidate about your budget and your expectations, and be ready to discuss benefits and perks beyond just the base salary.
So it's not just about the money.
It's not just about the money.
Yeah.
It's about the whole package.
Right, making sure that it's a good fit.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot.
For both sides.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so the contract is signed. Celebrations are in order. Your new Markdown developer is officially part of the team.
Awesome.
Now what?
Onboarding.
Onboarding, yes.
How do we do this right?
Onboarding is so crucial for setting the tone and helping your new hire feel welcome and supported.
Right. It's like their first impression.
Exactly.
With the company.
So the perfectdeveloper.com emphasizes clear communication.
Okay.
Setting realistic expectations.
Right.
Providing access to all the necessary tools and documentation.
Yeah.
And even assigning a mentor or a buddy.
I like that.
To guide them through those first few weeks.
So they're not just like thrown in the deep end.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You want to ease them in, make them feel comfortable.
So it's like laying the foundation for like a good working relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about building that trust.
Okay, so we've hired our Markdown developer. We've onboarded them.
Right.
They're doing great.
They're killing it.
But now we need to think about building like a whole team.
Yes, because even the most talented individual can achieve more as part of a cohesive team.
Right. We're stronger together.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
I love it. Okay, so the perfectdeveloper.com talks about this too.
They do. They have a whole section on building a strong, high-performing developer team.
Okay, well, let's dive into that.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're back and ready to like wrap up our deep dive into the world of Markdown developers.
It's been a journey.
It has been a journey, and we've covered like
just so much.
A lot of ground, like from understanding what they do, the skills they need, how to hire them, negotiate salaries, onboarding,
the whole shebang.
Yeah. The perfectdeveloper.com really has been like
it's seriously
a lifesaver in like figuring all this out.
Yeah, they're like the Wikipedia of developer hiring. Yep. I mean, they have everything.
Seriously.
But before we totally wrap up, I think there's one more thing we need to touch on.
Okay.
And we kind of alluded to this before the break.
Yep.
Building a strong team of developers.
Like not just one Markdown developer.
Right, exactly.
But like a whole team of them.
Because even the most talented individual can achieve more.
Right.
As part of a cohesive team.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Right.
Okay, so the perfectdeveloper.com, they talk about this too.
Oh, they do. They have a whole section on this.
Okay.
It's like building a high-performing developer team 101.
Okay. Awesome. Let's dive into that.
So it's easy to get caught up in like finding that one perfect candidate.
Right.
But building a successful team, it's about so much more than just individual talent.
It's about the culture, the environment.
Yeah, the vibe.
Okay, so what are like the key factors that make a really good developer team? So
the perfectdeveloper.com highlights a few things.
Okay.
Shared vision.
Oh, that's huge.
Everyone needs to be on the same page about the goals and the objectives. Yeah. If everybody understands like the big picture and how their work contributes to it, you're going to have a much more cohesive and motivated team.
If you know why you're doing something, you're going to be more likely to like put your all into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that ties into another important point.
Okay.
Clear communication.
Oh, gosh, so important.
Right.
Especially with developers, I feel like.
Especially with developers. Like, they're often in their own little world.
Yeah.
So having those efficient communication channels, whether it's regular team meetings, project management tools, a dedicated chat platform, it can make a world of difference.
So everyone knows what's going on.
Right.
They're all on the same page.
Exactly.
Less confusion.
Because nothing kills productivity faster than, like, miscommunication.
Right. Having to go back and forth. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, what's the goal? Okay, another thing they highlight, cross-functional collaboration.
Okay.
So encourage your developers to work with other teams.
So not just the developers talking to each other.
Right. Yeah. Designers, QA, product managers.
Yeah, get those different perspectives.
Okay.
Break down those silos.
Yeah.
And when you have that diversity of skill sets and viewpoints, you're more likely to catch problems early on.
Yeah.
And come up with more creative solutions.
That's a really good point.
Right.
Okay, so we've got shared vision, clear communication, cross-functional collaboration.
The trifecta.
But what about tools?
Tools, yeah.
Are there certain tools of technologies that can help facilitate teamwork?
So theperfectdeveloper.com dives into this automation tool.
Oh, yeah, to like automate those like boring, repetitive tasks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Robust security solutions.
Of course, got to have that.
Keep your code safe.
Yeah.
And integrated CI/CD pipelines.
Okay.
To automate the testing and deployment process.
So it's not just about like having the right people. Right. It's also about having the right tools.
It's about giving them the tools they need to succeed.
Okay. And
last but not
least, most important one.
What's that?
Continuous learning and skill development.
So important.
Right. Technology is constantly evolving.
Totally.
The best developer teams are the ones that embrace ongoing learning.
Keep learning.
Keep learning new things.
Stay ahead of the curve.
Stay ahead of the curve.
I love it.
It keeps things interesting.
Yeah.
And it ultimately benefits the whole team and the company.
Right. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Wow. Okay. This deep dive has been so insightful.
It has been a good one.
We've covered so much ground.
So much.
From finding that perfect Markdown developer to building a whole thriving team.
And theperfectdeveloper.com, they're amazing.
They really are.
I can't recommend them enough.
Yes, seriously.
Check them out.
Okay, before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay, hit me.
We've talked a lot about technical skills, tools, processes.
All that.
But don't forget about team culture.
Oh, so important.
Like that positive, supportive environment.
Yeah.
That is what makes people want to come to work every day.
A team that feels valued and respected, they're going to go above and beyond.
For sure.
That's the secret sauce.
Okay, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Sad to see it go.
But we hope you enjoyed this little exploration into the world of Markdown developers and building awesome teams.
Awesome teams.
Don't forget to check out theperfectdeveloper.com.
Yes, do it.
Try those 5 key questions.
Yeah.
It'll change your life.
Seriously, it will.
Okay, until next time.
Keep diving into new topics and keep learning.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.